Good morning to everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. My name is Greta Rivero. I am the Director of Grants and Program Development for the Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Foundation. We were founded in 1976. The Greater Washington Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is a membership-driven organization which supports the economic development of DC metropolitan region. What we do is we facilitate the success of Latino and other minority-owned businesses and communities through networking, advocacy, education, and of course, access to capital. Supported by the Department of Housing and Community Development. And in this case, for this year, the Small Business Administration has been extremely helpful in making sure that we are providing accredited workshops, webinars, and information to all of our members and community constituents, as well as entrepreneurs and small businesses. I would like to thank all of you for being here again. Today's workshop series is Basics on Market Research and Evaluation. This is a two-part series. Today we're on the second topic, which is, as you can see on the screen, tools, tips, and tricks. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you our workshop leader, Greg Payne, President and Principal Consultant to Emerging Market Enterprises, LLC. He's a rock star, so pay close attention because he really goes quickly when he needs to and pauses when he needs to, but try to keep up. Make sure you got your pen and paper in hand. Go.
Awesome, Greta, that is a perfect introduction. Thank you so much. And you took the words out of my mouth. We're going to be going fast here today, folks. So I hope you're ready to set expectations, and I believe very firmly in setting expectations for what this workshop is and is not. It is, again, tools for entrepreneurs and small business owners. Our focus is giving you tools so that you can do market research quickly and in an inexpensive manner. Our focus is for-profit businesses who are targeting consumers or other businesses. So you're developing B2C or B2B businesses. What this workshop is not, it is not an MBA course, it's not theoretical, it's not something that you need a master's degree to understand. I want to make everything very, very approachable and understandable and relatively easy to use. While I personally do a lot of work with nonprofit leaders, and if you or someone you know works at a nonprofit, I'm happy to have a longer conversation offline about what parts of this toolkit are applicable to nonprofits and what parts are maybe not so applicable. You're still welcome to stick around on this workshop, and it can still be very useful for you, but we won't be focused on nonprofits. And also, we won't be focused on anybody who's developing a business idea to work with government as a customer. Governments are very nuanced. They can be great customers, but they're a little bit nuanced. And so we won't be focused on that during this conversation. And then finally, this is not the end of the journey. It's the start. All of these tools are part of a continuous process of learning about your customer and delivering them great value. But I just want to share sort of who I think is on the line. And I'm pretty sure most folks fall into one of these four categories. You either have an idea or concept for a business or a new product or service in a current business, but you haven't quite launched it, or you've launched it, you've launched the idea, but you haven't quite made sales, right? So you haven't quite connected with customers and had a transaction happen. Or you may be in the early sales stage where you have some sales, but you're still thinking about ways to adjust the product or service. Or finally, you have significant sales. So you've had the product or service in the market for a while, you have lots of sales. Even if you fall into this last category, this workshop is useful for you because it's a way of, these are tools through which you can continually understand your customer. And that is something that makes you competitive, very competitive. So even if you fall into that last category, or if you fall into none of these categories, pay attention throughout this entire workshop because there's bound to be things that will be very useful for you. So if you didn't attend day one, it's always worth knowing who's on the other side of the screen here talking to you. So Greta made a wonderful introduction, but let me just give a few more details about Emerging Market Enterprises. So I'm the founder and president and principal consultant at Emerging Market Enterprises. Our focus at EME is working globally, so in the US and abroad, supporting startups, small businesses, and nonprofits that have a potential for measurable positive impact in society. So we do this through strategy and planning, market evaluation, and customer discovery, and also leadership coaching. So we believe very firmly that the individual is an important part of developing a business. So we do spend a lot of time supporting the entrepreneur or business owner to make them the leader that they want to be and that their business needs them to be in order to be successful. So we are going to hit this definition again very quickly on what market research is. It's the process of collecting and analyzing data on a product or service, right? Ultimately, this serves as an input to identify which products or services are in demand, how big the market is, and who is buying them. It also tells you something about current competitors in that market. And then anybody who is on day one knows that the second bullet is the most important thing out of this definition. So it helps you identify your target market. It helps you set realistic expectations about that market. So expectations for yourself. You understand how big it is, how small it may be, right? So you might be surprised by how small the market might be after you do some market research. And then consequently, you can reduce business risk. So you can avoid any pitfalls by doing good market research. Okay, so that was me talking a lot, very fast. And so I want to take a breath because we're about to dive into a review of the big picture. And we're going to talk a little bit as well about the day one assignment and transition to finishing day one conversation, and then of course getting to the conversation of what's beyond. And I bring this framework back up, the big picture, because this is key to understanding where we are and where we're going. So this is the Lean Startup methodology. No need to remember this in detail. Feel free to follow this link that you see at the bottom of the screen when you have the slides to learn more about it. But the key principles of the Lean Startup methodology, if anybody remembers, I'm going to bring them back up on the screen, and I'll ask everyone later if you remember what the core concepts of Lean Startup is. And it's about working smarter, not harder. It's about embracing curiosity, not fear. And it's about prioritizing speed and not perfection. So this is so important to remember. And when I share something like the Lean Startup methodology, it's never about the nitty-gritty details. It's always about sort of how it helps you guide your path. And again, so this is about methods and tools that help you do the right thing and not spend a lot of time or money doing the wrong thing. So you work smarter, not harder. Embracing curiosity, to always be in a position of learning, right? To always be in a position of, I wonder more about that. That customer said that there wasn't something he liked. I want to learn more about that, instead of, oh, that customer said they didn't like it. Well, I must be terrible. I must have a terrible product. I must have a terrible service. No, that fear doesn't help you develop a better service. Embrace curiosity. Embrace a position of wanting to learn more about that customer's experience. And then finally, prioritizing speed and not perfection. There are dozens and dozens of examples throughout history in business of businesses succeeding because they were the quickest to market and not because they had the most perfect product or service. But over time, they developed that perfect product or service. Amazon, for example, in the early days, it was a very simple website that was set up to sell used books to college students. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. And obviously, I don't have to tell anybody here how massive Amazon has become and how precise their services have become. But that came over time after first delivering something quickly that met the need. adequately. So all of that is going to be guiding our work. So the three main components of market research and evaluation, this is what we covered for the most part on last Thursday. We got through two of the three main elements, understanding what your business is and defining your market and estimating your market size. So we're going to speed through those quickly. Just as a review, we're going to take a pause after announcing our winner, and we're going to get some feedback from everyone about how they enjoyed the assignment or if they had any questions about the assignment. And then we're going to get into framing the competition. And we're going to cover that piece so that everyone has instruction or guidance on how best to frame the competition. So running relatively quickly through understanding what your business is. What we covered last Thursday were three pieces: articulating your product or service idea, identifying the three characteristics of your product or service that make it unique, and then defining your industry or industries. Now, all of these are screenshots from the assignment. For anybody who hasn't had a chance to go into the assignment, that can be downloaded at your convenience, and I'll share that link later. But these are the elements within those three components. So we walk through articulating your product or service idea. You need to articulate exactly what you offer or plan to offer. Say who you're offering that product or service to, and you want to be as specific as possible about who that is. And then you want to say, okay, we're offering this product or service to these individuals so that they so that they can hopefully solve a problem, have a better experience in whatever part of life that you're delivering this product or service for. Next, you want to identify the three characteristics of your product or service that make it unique. There were a lot of questions about on day one about what I meant by unique. And really at this stage, it's just all about what you think is unique. It's okay if eventually you find out that maybe it wasn't that unique, but right now we're prioritizing speed and not perfection. So we just want to quickly write down what we think are the three characteristics that make our product or service idea, or the product or service that we've already developed and launched in the market, what three things we think make it unique. And then finally, the last step in understanding what your business is defining your industry. So I reviewed on day one the North American industry classification system. This is a hierarchical system where essentially you can understand what industry you fall into, and that helps you learn a little bit more about your, a bit about your competition, and also gives you insights into what factors may be affecting your industry overall. All right, so the second thing that we reviewed on the first day was defining your market and estimating your market size. And there were two steps to take in defining your market and estimating your market size. First, define your primary customer, and next, estimate your market size. In order to define your primary customer, as you can tell, you're taking some of the information you did in step one, and you're saying, okay, our primary customer is, and you're going to define that type of person or that type of individual or that group as specifically as possible. You're going to state the problem that your product or service solves. And once again, you want to be as specific as possible. You want to do your best to get into your customer's shoes and think about what is it about their experience that that my product is changing their life from A to B. And then finally, focusing exclusively on your customer, you want to spend some time writing and thinking about some characteristics or qualities that define your primary customer, or that just are a help sort of, if you imagine, if you lightly sketch a picture, but then you start filling in the lines and coloring it in and adding more detail. This is where you're adding more detail. You're adding more detail about you're making your customer into more of a person. So you might say, oh, there's somebody who, they watch a lot of sports and they spend a lot of time on Facebook. They're younger and they live in a small apartment. Some of what I'm saying might sound a little silly to define about your customer, but these are important steps to start just understanding what kind of person they are or they might be. And this will become important later, and you'll see why. And then finally, estimating your market size. I gave you some tools to look up some demographics on day one, and we'll list all of those references at the very end. But you've got some tools for understanding how many people might be in your market, how much they might pay per year for the product or service that you offer. And then that gives you a market size. And this is something that can be done very quickly. And the point is to, again, err on the side of speed rather than perfection. Get something done that you think is about right, because that gives you an idea of just how small the market might be and just how big it might be. Okay, so this was the assignment from day one. We are about to announce the winner of 3 free hours of consulting or coaching. So if you're at your desk, you can feel free to do a drum roll for yourself. But I'm very excited. First of all, before I announce the winner, I want to really appreciate everyone who downloaded the assignment. Several dozen people downloaded the assignment. We had a number of people who submitted it on time in order to be considered. And I also got notes from folks who said, hey, it was just a busy weekend and I didn't get around to it, but I really, the assignment looked great and I'm definitely going to do it. So thank you everyone who engaged with the assignments and at the very least kind of did the follow-up steps that I was requesting from day one. It's a sign that this was a very useful process and that certainly makes me feel happy. So I appreciate that. And so once again, out of everyone who submitted the assignments, I randomly selected one person out of everyone who submitted it to get 3 free hours of consulting or coaching. Everyone who submitted it, though, I'll be following up with you to offer you something else, which will also be very valuable to helping to develop your business or business idea. But there is one person who randomly got selected, again, out of everyone who submitted it. And so congratulations to Prudence Shaw. I'm pretty sure she's on the line, so I'm hoping she's getting this message.
Oh my God, I was screaming. Wow, I can't believe it. Wow, I'm so excited. I'm thrilled. This is fabulous.
Congratulations, Prudy.
Yeah, congratulations, Prudence. Wonderful. So we are at T-minus 20 minutes, and I promised plenty of Q&A time. That was good. Q&A and review of day one assignments, or I should say the day one assignment, but there's a lot of stuff for us to get through. So I want to speed up a little bit and go into the next step here. And that is the third big piece of the day one assignment that we didn't quite get to. Discussing on day one is identifying your top 3 competitors. There's going to be a few main steps here. Framing the competition, there's going to be a few main steps. And the first step is identifying your top 3 competitors. You want to identify businesses that are targeting your primary customer with the same or similar services or products. Now, the way you can do this relatively quickly, you can Google key search terms. That's obvious, but it's worth stating. You can very quickly go out there and Google, okay, I'm a coaching business in DC for executives in their second career, right? You can Google that and you'll at least be able to get some hits. You can also check out business directories provided by your state or region. I listed the link for DC's search directory there. I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but governments use what is called a NIGP, stands for something related to procurement, government procurement. So unfortunately, it's a different code, but there's crosswalks from NAICS to NIGP, and that can be a very, very quick way. In fact, I worked with one client, and I found very quickly, I found 10 of his closest competitors in DC by just going to the DC search directory. I crosswalked his NAICS, which was marketing and branding, to an NIGP code, and found, again, his closest competitors. For anybody who was in day one, they know that we were using the example of a catering company. And so in this case, the 96219 ended up being the closest code to NIGP. So you can also use social media platforms. For example, in LinkedIn, for anybody who's familiar with LinkedIn, you can search for a company, and LinkedIn will often give you a list of other companies that are similar to them. So that's one of the easiest ways to very quickly identify who is in your universe of competition. And then finally, and I'm going to spend a good 30 seconds on this, I love my local library, and everybody should love their local library. This is one of my favorite methods. Your local library, your public libraries have so many resources. Before you think you know everything your public library has, it has 10 times more things there. And the good news is almost all public libraries have a massive amount of digital databases. So things that you can search for just from your home. Even if your local library doesn't have research databases, you may have an option for free access to libraries with whom your library has what's called reciprocity. So for example, if you go to this link at the very bottom of your screen, you can find out that if you live in Montgomery, Prince George's, DC, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, Prince William, I think, Loudoun County, if you live and if you have in any of those areas, and if you have a public library card, you can get for free a public library card to any one of those other locations. I personally have 6 library cards, and I'm proud of it. And it's amazing because it gives you access to a massive wealth of resources. I've personally found that Fairfax County Library, I don't think I mentioned that in the list. They're also in that list. Fairfax County Public Library has some great information and databases. So framing the competition, once you do some Google searches or use any of those other resources, you're going to find, and I found this on a quick review of Yelp when I Googled, in my case, catering for my hypothetical example. These 3 companies popped up, and it was obvious that they were offering Caribbean style catering in the DC region. So I listed them as my competitors. And the next step is you want to do a high level evaluation of each competitor. You want to evaluate whether each competitor may be a direct or indirect competitor. And it's very important, I can't stress this enough, to be honest with yourself about this evaluation. What I find, unfortunately, what happens when entrepreneurs or business owners are considering a new product or service idea, they assume that they don't have competition. They assume that other competitors just aren't doing exactly what they're thinking of doing, and that's a risk. You want to be very honest and evaluate your competition very transparently and candidly in order to get a good sense for who might be a direct or indirect competitor. And the way I like to do that, this is in your day 1 assignment, is you can you now have your top 3 competitors identified, and you want to answer each one of these questions, putting an X if your answer is yes, absolutely, or an O if your answer is somewhat. And you'll see what happens when you do this. I listed my top 3 competitors. I have my 3 characteristics that I've listed that I think are unique about my business. And I very quickly can see now where I need more information and which ones I think are my more direct competitor. In this case, Peach's Kitchen and We Jammin' Catering look like a more direct competitor than Made with Love Catering. So that's an important insight that I now have. But I also, I didn't, in the 2 minutes that I spent on this, and no more than just 2 to 5 minutes or so, I didn't find whether or not we can order catering from them within 24 hours for 100 people. So that's okay if I just put a question mark for now. And I also couldn't find any information on whether they have a famous chef. So I should have put question marks there as well, because that's information that I might learn about later. And it's okay to have this be incomplete for now. Again, we're prioritizing speed over perfection. And then finally, a bonus step in assignment 1 was identifying the key issues or trends affecting your market and industry. This also might be an area, a way to find additional industry insights if you perhaps were having a challenge with identifying a precise NAICS code. You can use your Bureau of Labor Statistics industry reports. And you just want to get a sense for what's happening in the market. Is it growing, getting smaller? Are there fewer companies? How is the economy affecting the market or industry? And are government regulations an important factor? These are not the only questions you should consider, but these are some of the more important questions that you should consider about your industry or market. Okay, so I'm going to take a breath. We still have a few more slides that I want to get through, and then leave about 7 minutes or so for questions at the end. So we've done our day 1 assignment. We've done the first pass of market evaluation. Now we're going to be talking about what we do next, okay? So we've focused mostly on this first piece, getting data to get some learnings, some initial learnings, right? And we've worked smarter, not harder. We've embraced curiosity, not fear. And we've prioritized speed and not perfection, right? These are all of the principles that we've used to quickly get data and quickly get some learnings, get some insights. Now what we're going to be doing next, very quickly, unfortunately, because we're limited on time, we're going to be walking through these next steps. And Sam, one of your questions earlier, which was perfect, was about, when and how should I update this, the day 1 assignment, right? When and how should I update the market research and evaluation? And the answer is, our process has helped us fill out the day 1 assignments relatively quickly to get an understanding of the lay of the land. Now we're going to be going through some steps to generate some ideas for what questions we want to answer, what we can build to answer those questions, how we're going to measure it, which is going to give us what? It's going to give us more data, which will help us then return to that day 1 assignment and update anything that we maybe didn't know about yet, or that we wanted to learn more about. Whenever you have a question about your business, whenever you're at a moment of maybe you don't feel like doesn't feel exciting, or you're at a crossroads and you're not sure which direction to go in terms of improving your business, you can almost never go wrong by learning more about your customer. The customer is truly the king or queen of the market. They dictate what happens. Their demand, their willingness to pay is what directs, guides, and forms your ability to be competitive. So with that is where we're going. We're going to learn more about our customer. And I'm going to share 3 methods that I think are the best ways to learn about your customer. And the best ways to do it, what? Quickly and inexpensively. That's my promise to you, and you're going to see how that's going to apply. So we're going to talk about interviewing, which is one-on-one or small group interviewing, surveys, and prototyping. So these are three different methods. They're not the only methods out there. So if you think that neither of these apply to you, that's okay, or none of these apply to you, that's okay, because we can, I can absolutely share in a longer conversation other methods that might be available. So interviewing is best if you are just launching your business or product or service, or if your product or service is particularly innovative. So you want to get deep insights into one or two or several people's perspective and experience. Surveys are best if you need lots of data quickly, if your set of questions are relatively standard, and if your customers have internet access. So that's very important. These days, very few surveys happen with pen and paper. It's just a fact that to get surveys out efficiently, you need to distribute them by internet or digitally, virtually, and therefore your respondents need to have access to the internet as well. And then finally, prototyping. This is something that is best if you have a physical product or one that is app-based, but often, as we'll see in a moment, that prototyping can be useful even if you don't have a physical product or one that is app-based. So this is a lot, and I'm not going to read through each one of these, but I want, and I think actually this is something that will be useful for you to review on your own. And if you're thinking about interviewing as a method to learn more about your customer. Let me point out a few things. First of all, you can do this on a one-on-one basis or in small groups. Small groups can be useful to get a lot of insights quickly from a lot of individuals. But of course, remember that group dynamics come into play in that situation. And if you have someone who's quieter or shy, you may miss an opportunity to get their insights if they don't feel comfortable about sharing in a group setting. A few things to keep in mind: that interviewing is a way to understand the full person, right? So you want to spend some time in an interview at the early end just learning about the person. Where are you from? You know, when did you move here? Tell me about anything that you want to talk about before you dive into the questions that you're most interested in learning about with regards to your product or service. That's kind of just good interview etiquette, but it also makes the person feel comfortable and happy to share. The very last bullet is probably the most important bullet. Be curious, be observant, and write everything down. Curiosity should drive your questioning. Allow the interviewee to be the one teaching you about their experience. You're not there to direct them or to guide them down a certain path. You're there to listen to them and have them guide you. This actually, I was really happy to share this method because one of the comments that we got, and if you're on the line, I can't remember who it was, but you'll probably recognize your comment, made a comment that current or potential clients might be oversaturated and maxed out on virtual communications. Therefore, how do we, small business owners, continue to reach new customers in the changing climate? And that changing climate is one where, as this person noted, potential clients are just feeling oversaturated. So this is a great way to reach people and make them feel important and special. Interviewing has a way of having a personal touch, of giving someone, i.e. your potential customer, an outlet that maybe they don't have, because you're right. These days, unfortunately, we're just inundated with emails and things to click on and things to read and videos to watch, that when you offer someone an opportunity to have a personal interaction, that's really kind of a wonderful gift. And so I'd respond to this person who made this comment, and thank you for this wonderful comment, that just this step of a personal outreach for an interview can be one of the best things you can do to develop great relationships with your customers and to win customers early before you even have a new product or service. Because it shows that you're different, and it shows that you have kind of an ability to reach out in a personal way. In addition to interviewing, there is an option to do surveys, and this is obviously less personal, but it's a great way to get a lot of data quickly. And I won't go through each one of these bullets similar to the previous slide, but I do want to note that one of the most important things is to be careful about the platform that you use to deliver the survey. Be very thoughtful about whether it's accessible and reliable, whether there's no password required, and whether it displays well on a mobile device. These are the sorts of things that are easy to overlook, but can essentially make your survey fail because it's not something that users can actually access. I want to quickly cover, and I know we're reaching the end of our hour. Greta, you're so kindly telling me that we don't have to go too quickly, but I do want to wrap up in a few minutes here so we have time for at least a little bit of Q&A. So let me cover prototyping really quickly. So prototyping is often a concept that seems very technical and very engineering-like. But prototyping doesn't have to be that. And in fact, if you're doing it quickly and inexpensively, you should not be spending very much time or money on this. Many things can be prototyped. It doesn't have to be pretty or perfect, just useful. Prototypes can be built in a virtual or real environment. And if you build them in a real environment, using cardboard and tape is fantastic. Just as a really quick example, on the right-hand side, you see a photo of a prototype that the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art created, because back in 2012, they were undergoing renovations and had to explore how they were going to continue to engage their customers without a physical museum location. And so they were developing different concepts and wanted to get customers' reaction to it. And if you notice there, they found an old cardboard box. They cut out a VIP window to, as part of what I imagine was a kind of larger experience, but as part of a way to walk customers through what real life experience they might see in this kind of temporary solution that they were developing. And that's the advantage of prototypes. It allows the customers to get, literally immerse themselves in the experience that you want them to have, and allows them to react. They can say, oh, I don't like that. VIP window, I'd never use that. I would never need that. And all of those insights are gems. They're gold to anyone who's exploring a new business or service idea. So whether or not you think prototyping is right for you, keep an open mind to it, because it may actually be very useful, whether or not you have a physical product or whether or not you have an app-based product. Okay, so a review of what we've done. This is everywhere that we've been. We've filled in the market research and evaluation assignment as we were collecting data and learning. We came up with ideas for what we wanted to learn more about, right? And all of those ideas came out of questions that came out of the market research and evaluation assignments, right? We thought, I don't know about this. I want to learn more about this. I'm curious about this. And anything that's related to the customer experience, as was noted, is absolutely what you want to learn more about. Always prioritize learning more about your customer. And then what we did, we discussed ways to learn more from your customers through interviews, surveys, or prototyping. And what you're going to be hopefully doing now is taking that next step to conduct interviews, to deploy surveys, to test prototypes, which you will then get data. And as everybody sees in that cycle, and as this answers Sam's question earlier, as soon as you get data that you think is rich and you think is insightful, update that market research and evaluation assignment, right? Note anything that you learned, anything that may have changed completely. You may, in fact, through a few cycles of interviewing and surveying and doing prototyping, you may find, and this is okay, you may find that, you know, your product or service isn't what your customers need. And in fact, they need something maybe a little bit or a lot different. And that's the direction your business should go, because of course the customer is the king and queen, right? They're going to dictate what they want. And if you continue to want to serve that customer, then obviously it benefits you to pivot in a direction that meets their needs the best.
Thank you, Greg. Does anyone else have any questions they'd like to pose now before we close this conversation? Okay. Well, David, thank you for joining us. And I just want to reintroduce David Hincapie to our webinar. He is part of the Small Business Administration, and he can speak on what they're offering currently and what they are no longer offering. So before we come to a close, I want to give him a chance and then let Greg finish everything up. Thank you, David.
Hi, everyone. I think I should be unmuted now. So, yeah, what we're not offering is stuff in person. Mostly, we're trying to offer everything else that we used to offer, you know, the different workshops and things, as you know, with Rod and with others in our office through this method. We are working on developing more webinars in conjunction with the resource partners, whether it's the SBA branded ones or chambers of commerce, like the Greater Washington Chamber of Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, to help businesses. We're focusing on the reopening and the long-term viability of the business. In other words, how to plan for the long term, how to be able to survive this, because just because we're reopening doesn't mean your revenues are going to be back to where they used to be. Right? It's going to be a long time before you're back there. And that's why Greg's information on changing your marketing or learning more about your customer to see how you can retain them as customers and maybe even get new customers through this market research is very important, because you're going to have to adjust your business. Another thing is we were planning, and you might remember this, Greta, that we were planning on some seminars. They were going to be in-person workshops on using the business model canvas as another tool to learn more about your customers, to learn more about your market segments, and improve how you deliver your services or goods to them and increase your revenue, et cetera. We're continuing with that, and we'll be adding that to any other things that we do. And I think that they are good complements to the tools that you got from Greg here, you know, with using the Census Business Builder for doing market research. And I want to lastly underline what Greg said about libraries. People underestimate their public libraries a lot, probably because most people don't really understand how much training goes into a librarian. So every person that you see at the front desk of the public library is not a trained librarian. You know, there's somebody who works there part-time, they assist, but they're librarians, the people with that title. To be a librarian, that's a master's degree. It's a master's degree in library science. They are experts, not on everything, but they are experts on helping you find the source for information for everything. So they may not know the answer to your question, but you go to them and you say, I want to find out about this. And they'll say, look in this database, look in this one, look in this one, look in this one. This is how you do it. They are experts in pointing you in the right direction to get information. So do not underestimate them. And yeah, that's my shout out to public libraries. By the way, Greg, one of my favorite things to do whenever I go to a city is, if I can get away with it, is get a library card from that city. I have them from 2 cities in Germany. Whenever I travel, I lived in Madrid. I have a library card there. I have a library card here in DC, obviously. I have a collection of about a dozen library cards from around the world.
That's awesome.
That's my little library nerd shout out to you. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. I would have spent a half an hour on that slide alone if I could have, just because I wanted to make sure that message got across. So David, I'm so glad you hit that message again. Can't emphasize it enough. Yes, there's amazing wealth of resources, which I need to mention too. You've already paid for as a taxpayer, so take advantage of them. So Greta, you mind if I just wrap up? Is there anything else that you want to share?
No, I think on my end, I'm great. And thank you, David, for saying that about the libraries. And now that they're starting to open, I know that in DC, they're open, but they're only allowing a certain number of individuals into the actual library. But for sure, if you can take time and get out of your house and be in a different environment and still full information, I think that you should definitely benefit from that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, visiting them if you can, but again, so much is available online. So much is available online, and sometimes it takes sadly, some public library websites aren't perfect with regards to how to navigate them. But if you dig enough, you can find the databases that should be available as long as you have a library card. Well, great. Well, listen, I want to thank everyone once again for joining us and for sticking around. And sorry we ran a little bit over, but there was obviously a lot of information to get through, and I thought it was all very important to make sure we got across, to include leaving plenty of time for discussion and conversation. Thank you for joining both sessions if you were able to, or only one if that's all you could get around to. Thank you for downloading the assignments, for filling out the assignments. I have these references here on the screen right now, which you'll also get when we send the slides to you. These are all of the links and all of the databases and resources that I referenced throughout the 2 days, to include, you'll notice towards the bottom there, the designkit.org under methods to collect customer insights. That's part of IDEO.org's offering. If you don't know about them, they essentially do a lot of great thinking and approaches to how to collect good customer insights. And so you can dig around that free resource there on other methods. For example, Sam, you asked the question about other methods to collect customer insights. For every one method that I shared today, they've got another dozen. So there's great ways to think about how to collect good customer information. And almost a bonus advanced thing is customer journey mapping. I'm not going to describe it in too much detail, but if you want to go to those links there, you can learn about how to customer journey map, which is all about getting even deeper into your customer's experience to understand their touch points with your product or service. So next steps, go ahead and download the market research and evaluation assignment. You can send it to me if you like. Unfortunately, we're not having another drawing for 3 free hours of consulting, but I'd be happy to take a look at it and give my brief thoughts. Sign up for updates at my website, emergingmarketenterprises.com. We're actually going to be having a new service offering coming out that's about pivoting your business, and you'll hear all about that when we make that announcement. And send me any questions or comments you have about our workshop, or tell me how many library cards you have. I'd be happy to hear if you've got some cool library cards to maybe some other parts of the globe or parts of the US. Or if you just have any random questions, I'd be happy to respond. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Yeah.
I'm sad that this is ending. It's very informative and helpful, quite frankly. Even I learned a bunch of stuff, so this will be helpful when I help navigate other people when they ask me questions to you.
That's right.
All right.
Always happy to
Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great week. And again, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care.